The Chinese have and will continue to play a constructive role. They worked with us, again, very constructively on the UN resolutions dealing with North Korea. And we believe, and I think they believe, it's not in their interest to have a worldwide arms race. It's certainly not in their interest economically to have an arms race in the Middle East.
So that's a no?
Yeah, I mean, that's not really an answer to whether or not they're on board.
No,
I mean,
we are working through with them, with our other partners in the P5+1. This will go through a process at the United Nations.
when does that process start?
It already has.
But when does the public process start of bringing sanctions forward? In the
Well, again, the process of writing this and devising these, as you know, has already started.
Is the question not whether or not China will support sanctions, but what kind, or are you still working on the whether they will support?
I'm not going to get into the back and forth of diplomatic negotiations, understanding again that it's in everybody's interest not to have an international arms race.
Robert, this is a difficult time, a tense time already with China, and you have the problem that you're talking about right now. You need China's help on Iran and many other issues. Why proceed with the Dalai Lama meeting, which you know will infuriate them?
Well, Joe, we've said this all along. First of all, we talked to the Chinese about their currency in Beijing. We talked to the Chinese about the Dalai Lama in Beijing. We talked about internet access and internet freedom with the Chinese, both in Shanghai during the town hall meeting and in Beijing. We think we have a mature enough relationship with the Chinese that we can agree on issues that are of mutual interest, but we also have a mature enough relationship that we know that two countries on this planet are not always going to agree on everything, and we'll have those disagreements.
Right. There are a couple things in the news that I was just wondering if you could comment on. One, could you talk about why General Jones is in Pakistan?
No.
And the other one is there's been some reporting about a Haiti Recovery Commission with Bill Clinton supposedly being asked to head up that effort. Is there?
I will check on that. I don't have an answer to that.
Can I follow up with the question I asked Dr. Romer, not looking back so much at the understandably incorrect perhaps incorrect projections on unemployment, but whether or not anybody in the White House has advised her to be more conservative rather than optimistic.
Of course not.
That's never come up.
Of course not.
Okay. To what degree does the administration, not just based on the report, attribute the job growth, the 95,000 to Recovery Act and any other legislation that the president's pushing?
Well, look, I think that, and I can see if Dr. Romer, I doubt she's broken it out to that degree. Obviously, she has, CBO has, underscored the job growth that we've seen under the Recovery Act. I think the Recovery Act also spurred economic growth, which we've seen now 2 consecutive quarters of positive economic growth. We did know this, we were never going to have jobs growth without first having economic growth. So, look, I think the Recovery Act has created additional jobs and created an environment for economic growth that we believe will ultimately lead businesses to add to their payrolls.
Would the White House respond favorably to a request for federal disaster aid for states in the Mid-Atlantic, Maryland, D.C., Pennsylvania, Delaware?
I don't want to prejudge what they might ask for. There's a process whereby those disaster declarations come from the states, or in the district's case, the mayor, to FEMA, and all of those are evaluated. Obviously, we have seen an extraordinary amount of winter weather here in the Mid-Atlantic. Having shoveled my driveway now, what seems like 10,000 times, I could testify to that. I don't want to prejudge what might be in what each locality might ask in particular for. The process, though, is that those declarations come from the state and the locality, in the case of the District of Columbia, to FEMA, and they're evaluated there.
Is the president satisfied with the way Washington and the metro areas have handled the snow removal? And the only reason I bring it up is not for pedestrian concerns, but because the federal government's been closed for 4 straight days.
Well, look, I'm reminded, again, as I shovel my driveway, that there are no statistics on record or that they did not keep, if there was snowfall that exceeded what we've had this winter, it happened before they kept statistics on snowfall during the winter. So I think everybody understands that what we have seen here is extraordinary. Look, I obviously it has been an overwhelming weather event. I know that OPM and others are working to try to get as much cleared so that the federal government can open again.
Follow up
Jonathan?
on that.
Yeah.
Is the government considering asking federal workers to make up their snow days?
Let me check with OPM. I need to check with OPM on that.
Why wasn't the president out there shoveling the walk?
Because he's the luckiest man on the planet. I told him that this weekend, that you should never leave. It's a great deal. You've got a huge driveway, and it's my back is killing me. Jonathan?
As Christine Romer said, the longest chapter in the economic report is the chapter 2 on the response to the crisis. And the president's message at the beginning of the report is unusually long. And I'm wondering if you think that this is a more political document than past economic reports, and if you're using this as a justification for policies rather than just a kind of an exposition of the state of the economy.
Well, look, I think as you saw Dr. Romer, this is the first time that this has been annotated with references as to where facts were derived from. This is a factual report to the president on the state of the economy and where it's headed. Jonathan, we didn't need a report from Dr. Romer to justify taking extraordinary action to save our economy. 763,000 people in January of 2009 lost their job. I don't think you need more evidence that something had to be done. And I think we know this, that had nothing been done, that hole that I talked to Mark about would be far deeper. I think one of the things this report, I think, helps many of you all understand is, again, the genuine severity of what we were dealing with and what we still are dealing with. And you know, the recession started mathematically in December of 2007. We are still at a period where we still have not seen consistent positive job growth. This was economic devastation, again, unseen since the late 1920s.
Senator Bond accused the White House of using John Brennan for political purposes, saying that he was doing your role. This economic report.
Let me just address that.
Okay.
Let's understand this. John Brennan has been working in counterterrorism for more than 25 years, right? First as a CIA agent, hired by President George W. Bush to work at the CIA and then to stand up the National Counterterrorism Center, okay? We asked him to stay on. I don't have the slightest idea what political party John Brennan is a member of. I've never had a political conversation with John. I know this, John is there each and every day working in his office to try to do everything he can to keep the American people safe. And I would suggest, whether it's to Senator Bond or others on Capitol Hill, that these are decisions best left to people that have an understanding of counterterrorism, experience in counterterrorism, and law enforcement, rather than to politicians on Capitol Hill.
But his specific accusation was that he was being used in a way that a press secretary is supposed to do. I mean, that he was enunciating
I think Kit Bond didn't. I don't think Kit Bond liked to hear what he already knew, which was he'd been told that Abdul Muttalib was in FBI custody after what happened on Christmas Day. Now, I'll let you, Jonathan, ask Kit Bond whether he understands the protocols of how the FBI deals with suspects enough to understand that. At that point, it would have been obvious he would have been read his Miranda rights. I don't know whether Kit Bond was confused or whether he just doesn't want to admit the facts.
When will the president sign the debt limit bill?
I think there's some discussion of him doing that at either the end of this week or over the weekend. I would say this, I think that bill also contains something exactly that he has has spoken for many times a very simple concept of paying for what you want to do.
So we'll do it publicly?
I don't know what the coverage plans are.
Just to follow up on Karen's question,